Hello again, I'm Chris Majock. In this episode of Mercyhurst UnArchived, we explore the extraordinary presidency of Sister Carolyn Hermann. Serving from 1963 to 1972, Sister Carolyn led Mercyhurst through an epic of profound renewal and dynamic transformation, an era often remembered as Mercyhurst's second spring. At what now seems like a fateful turning point moment of our history, the college was blessed with visionary leadership from a truly exceptional woman. Sister Carolyn was, as her friend Sister Maura Smith later remembered, compassionate, gracious, and courageous. Great empathetic leaders often shape history. So it was with Mercyhurst's 9th president, Sister Carolyn Hermann. Our story really begins in the decade and a half following the Second World War, generally a quiescent, complacent period at Mercyhurst College, an atmosphere mirroring that of the nation. The founding pioneer sisters were aging, Mother Borgia had suffered a stroke, and as a result, by the late 1950s, the college seemed to be aching for a new generation of leadership, not unlike the growing calls in America for a president who could meet the mighty challenges facing the country in the 1960s. Among those challenges was the anticipated explosive growth of colleges and universities to meet the demands of the baby boom generation soon heading off for college. In addition, a number of other forces, the Civil Rights Movement, the Cold War, changes within the Catholic Church, and the genesis of the women's liberation movement made the early 1960s a time fertile for social, political, and cultural change. The national zeitgeist was one of high idealism and a commitment to renewed national purpose, exemplified by President John F. Kennedy's call for a new frontier. One could feel that sense of a nation on the move here at Mercyhurst. On the hill above the college, the Mercy Sisters were pushing forward with construction of a new girls' seminary to be called Mercyhurst Preparatory School, and beginning to plan for a new mother house that would open in 1968. In the fall of 1961, Mercyhurst President Sister Loretta McHale appointed chemistry professor and chair of the department, Sister Carolyn Hermann, executive vice president of the college, catching her en route to class to make the appointment. Asking her when she would be starting, Sister Loretta replied, in true Carpe Diem spirit, "Now!" She's so impressed in that position that 2 years later, Sister Carolyn was elevated to the presidency. A native of Erie, Carolyn Hermann earned a degree in chemistry and biology from Mercyhurst before taking her master's and doctoral chemistry degrees at the universities of Minnesota and Notre Dame, the only woman religious in either program. Sister Carolyn now brought that same intrepid spirit to the presidency of Mercyhurst, challenging the faculty to help her forge a new vision for Mercyhurst to meet the needs of a rapidly changing society, even as it stayed true to its Catholic identity and core values as a Mercy College. Working alongside Mercy Sisters such as Eustace Taylor and Amard Poidock was a cadre of new male faculty members, including Barry McAndrew, William Garvey, and Richard Kubiak. Among their first initiatives was to strengthen Mercyhurst's cadet program, which prepared significant numbers of teachers for local parochial schools. Seeking to infuse Mercyhurst with fresh ideas and also strengthen college fundraising, Sister Carolyn established a lay community advisory board, bringing in business and civic leaders from Erie, Pittsburgh, and Buffalo, a first step in revitalizing the Board of Trustees. Other changes soon followed. In preparation for Mercyhurst's reaccreditation in 1965, Sister Carolyn charged the faculty with a comprehensive self-study, one that would reaffirm Mercyhurst, as she said, devotion to excellence, our refusal to accept mediocrity. The self-studies, recommendations touched everything, from increased funding for the library to new facilities and academic programs to reinvigorated student life and women's health programs. When the college was reaccredited that December, the Middle States Commission was sure to note that, quote, Sister Carolyn's continued leadership would be key to Mercyhurst's future. The process reflected the genuine respect Sister Carolyn held for the faculty. She supported their aspirations for professional development and higher standards that led to the granting of faculty tenure for the first time in 1972. A teacher-scholar herself, Sister Carolyn deepened Mercyhurst's commitment to faculty research while also raising compensation and benefits. In 1966, the faculty-led Blueprint Committee, dedicated, as Sister Carolyn put it, to its future and to its past, called for changes in the core curriculum, a trimester calendar, and new academic programs such as criminal justice. Sister Carolyn's presidency also brought new buildings, including Zern Hall, which reflected a fresh dynamism in the arts and sciences. To accommodate growing numbers of students, Baldwin Hall and Macaulay Hall were built, and the Baldwin Apartments were leased. Also rising on the hill was a learning resource center, later expanded and renamed Hammermill Library. The egalitarian spirit Sister Carolyn brought to faculty relations was equally evident when it came to the student body. In these years, students on American college campuses were governed by what now seems a rather draconian version of in loco parentis, a system dramatically challenged in the fall of 1964 with the free speech movement at the University of California's Berkeley campus. In the post-war era, young women at Mercyhurst heading to Gannon or downtown Erie had to wear gloves, hat, hose, and heels. A student looking to go, quote, auto riding with men needed permission from Mother Borgia. But the times, as Bob Dylan sang, were a-changing, and by the end of Sister Carolyn's presidency, those and other restrictions would be gone. Students knew that the president of the college cared for them and was listening to them. She said, "We believe in students, we respect students and their individual differences." Sister Carolyn's authenticity and lack of pretense were legendary. She could be found mopping the floor of the chapel foyer one minute and meeting a prospective student in the president's office the next. To better know students, for several years, Sister Carolyn chose to live in Baldwin Hall with freshmen. Part of what Sister Carolyn was hearing from students was their concern for the issues that were alive throughout her tenure: civil rights, women's liberation, the Vietnam War, and the counterculture. With deep roots in the pacifist Catholic worker movement, Sister Carolyn championed the engagement of the Mercyhurst community on issues of social justice throughout the era. She brought legendary peace activist and author Dorothy Day to Mercyhurst to speak. On March 11, 1965, in what is surely one of the most powerful moments in Mercyhurst history, Sister Carolyn led more than 200 students and faculty in a vigil and rally in sympathy with voting rights activists in Selma, Alabama. Days earlier, in the event known as Bloody Sunday, John Lewis and other nonviolent marchers had been savagely beaten on Selma's Edmund Pettus Bridge. We are so comfortable, so privileged, so unaware of what it means to suffer insults and indignities, Sister Carolyn declared at the vigil. Let each of us resolve and unite in prayer and charity to prove our solidarity with our brothers in chains. Sister Carolyn and the crowd then marched through rain and snow on a day very much like this one, down through the Mercyhurst gates, singing Bob Dylan's Blowing in the Wind and the civil rights anthem, We Shall Overcome. And the commitment did not end there. Days later, several Mercyhurst faculty and students joined a busload of local citizens traveling to Selma to walk the final leg of the historic 54-mile march to Montgomery, Alabama in support of the Voting Rights Act. Several years later, President Hermann, Director of Education Dr. Bill Bryan, and Professor Bob Sturm joined the Pennsylvania State Education Association in pressuring the Erie School District to address the district's egregious pattern of racial discrimination. At the president's direction, Mercyhurst refused to send student teachers into Erie schools until a serious anti-discrimination plan was developed. By the end of the 1960s, opposition to the Vietnam War had exploded on college campuses across the nation, including Mercyhurst. Students and faculty traveled to Baltimore, Maryland to support the Catonsville 9, Catholic peace activists who were facing trial for burning selective service records of young men. Mercyhurst students also participated in the National Vietnam Moratorium on October 15, 1969. The women's liberation movement also arrived on campus, with story after story in the Mercyad challenging sexism and the overall subservient position of women in American society. Among the changes students at Mercyhurst demanded and got was an end to the crowning of the May Queen tradition in 1968, which, despite its spiritual qualities of reverence for the Blessed Mother, also bore trappings of societal expectations of women that were being challenged everywhere. The following year, in an event titled Exposure 69, nearly every issue of the turbulent 60s was explored over the course of several days at Mercyhurst. It was in this context of fervent change that Sister Carolyn led the move toward coeducational instruction, a crowning achievement of her presidency. The establishment of the athletics department affirmed the growing importance of student athletes at Mercyhurst, while anticipating the decision to admit male students. Sister Carolyn's determination to move toward a coeducational Mercyhurst did not come easily, nor without resistance from some in her Mercy Sister community. Alumni, too, feared a fundamental change in the Mercyhurst identity. Sister Carolyn listened patiently to them all, and yet in 1969, with the support of the Board of Trustees, resolved to move forward with the decision she knew was critical both to the college's short-term survival and to its future growth and long-term development. And so in the spring of 1969, Dan Burke, who would soon begin a nearly 50-year tenure as a professor of art, became the first male student to graduate from Mercyhurst. That Mercyhurst nearly doubled its enrollment by the mid-1970s would never have been possible without the bold move to a co-ed college. When Sister Carolyn completed her presidency in 1972, she left behind an extraordinary record, ushering in a new era of dynamism at Mercyhurst that was felt in every aspect of academic and student life. Upon her passing in 1996, Sister Carolyn was celebrated with reverence by former students and colleagues, some of whom had become leaders of the college themselves by then. Her legacy has been enshrined in the memory of the Mercyhurst community in many ways, in the naming of the new Student Union building in 1990, in the renaming of the former Carpe Diem Society as the Sister Carolyn Hermann Society, in the establishment of the Sister Carolyn Hermann Service Award, and of scholarships in her name. Most of all, however, her spirit is carried on by all who are true to the mission and core values of the institution she serves so faithfully.
Because as I look around here, most of this was a wooded area. As I look around and see all of these buildings from 38th Street up to Grandview Boulevard, it is just a miracle. And I'm happy to have been able to witness that in my lifetime, and Mercyhurst isn't finished, and neither am I.